From 1980 to 1992, a civil war between government forces and leftist guerrillas left over 75,000 people dead in El Salvador. Political opponents were tortured in clandestine prisons, entire communities eliminated in massacres, and untold thousands were disappeared when they dared to oppose the government. At the war's end, the UN-sponsored Truth Commission took testimony attributing 85% of the violence to state agents, paramilitary groups, and death squads. 5% of the violence was attributed to leftist guerrillas, the FMLN. To this day, there's been no systematic inquiry into these crimes, and many families are still looking for their lost loved ones. For 15 years, the Institute of Human Rights of La Universidad Centroamericana, or IDUCA as it's known, has been working in El Salvador to change the entrenched system of impunity, seeking justice for victims of human rights abuses past and present.
Debe señalarse al tribunal que en El Salvador a las víctimas se les debe la verdad, la justicia y la reparación moral, social y jurídica. Mientras no se cumpla con estas tres cosas, no se puede hablar de un Estado democrático ni tampoco humano.
In 2011, Salvadoran victims approached the University of Washington Center for Human Rights, seeking assistance to conduct research into the abuses committed during the Civil War. Today, the Center for Human Rights is working closely with IDUCA's legal team, as well as the victims themselves, gathering and analyzing evidence to clearly demonstrate the systematic nature of crimes against humanity committed during the 1980s.
My name is Angelina Godoy, and I'm the director of the Center for Human Rights. Throughout the war, the response of the Salvadoran authorities, and oftentimes of the U.S. authorities, was to say, oh yes, we're aware that there is this unacceptable level of violence against civilians and political opponents taking place, but it's the work of these death squads that are acting independently. We're trying to rein them in. Those are extremists. They're a few bad apples. They're out of control, and they're operating on both the right and the left of the political spectrum. What the careful human rights research that was produced at the time and what we're doing now also shows is that those actions were not isolated to a few extremist fringe groups that were operating out of control. They were orchestrated from the very highest levels of political authority. They were systematic. We're talking about patterns of violence that are quite identifiable.
Porque el libro refleja casos de desaparecidos, de asesinados y torturados. Casos que el gobierno de El Salvador durante la época del finales de los 70 y durante el conflicto armado de los 80 mantuvo sistemáticamente, sembró el terror, un plan macabro de exterminar a todos los que ellos consideraban opositores, no simplemente los miembros armados de la guerrilla, sino que ellos consideraban opositores, y tan así de que hay casos de niños de 13 años, de 12 años, mujeres que desaparecieron, ancianos. Hay una infinidad de gamas que no eran hombres armados, guerrilleros, digámosle, por la posición armada. Entonces, sistemáticamente ellos mantuvieron una línea de exterminio.
The researchers that we're working with are dealing day to day with the investigative challenges of documenting these cases that we're developing, or I should say that they're developing to bring to court. So day to day, what they're doing is working with some of the evidence that we have. They have their hands on some evidence that has never before been seen. They're gathering testimony from survivors or from family members of these atrocities, and slowly going about the arduous task of piecing together legal cases that demonstrate the systematic pattern of state violence against political opponents during the war. What we're doing here is primarily looking at declassified documents, especially U.S. government documents that are available to us here and that aren't available or that haven't been available to our partners in El Salvador, looking for specific pieces of evidence that help build those cases and help shed light in some cases on what happened to specific individuals that we're interested in.
this will actually be there, because the last time I went to find one of these articles in the actual magazine, and it was the Alan Nairn article, which is like this really pertinent one, somebody had ripped it out. Just that, like, the magazine was there, and it was like, whoosh, somebody done this clean rip. Who does that? Like, my name is Kate Fenimore, and I'm a senior. I'm studying international studies, focusing on global health. I'm in the global health track. Lately in the research process is I'm sort of focusing on the US military side of it. So we know that the US was involved, but we need to sort of get more clear records of that. And so I'm looking at like the US military, trying to sort of parse out their intelligence structures and figure out how maybe they gave those intelligence structures to the El Salvadorian military. You know, I'm doing military stuff. Emily's doing the congressional reports. Ashley is doing the amnesty docs, and Janie and Mina are doing the declassified docs, because they're going to be doing an internship over the summer with the National Security Archives. I would say you find one interesting thing per 10 hours of research. So maybe 5 minutes out of 10 hours is something that's actually pertinent.
And it talks about like the armed forces have been operating with the list system here. If your name happens to be on the list and you are taken prisoner, your future life expectancy is about 1 hour. Young people from 16 to 20 are indiscriminate victims of the security forces, as these look up on most students as potential enemies. In our meeting today, we're going to show him like an example of declassified docs and what kind of information we can find. So I'm just dividing them up into the right categories.
Que han quemado unos documentos, esos libros, esas libretas, entonces el documento es de vital importancia.
The University of Washington Center for Human Rights collaboration with IDUCA has been greatly enhanced by the involvement of Spanish magistrate Baltasar Garzón, a pioneering advocate of universal jurisdiction who is advising the center's research team.
Necesario esa investigación, porque son crímenes que no prescriben, son crímenes que se siguen cometiendo. Existe la obligación no solo moral, sino legal, internacional y nacional de investigar. Esa es la finalidad del acompañamiento y ese es el objetivo final, el resarcimiento de las víctimas en lo que es el derecho fundamental de las mismas, reconocido por Naciones Unidas, que es la verdad, la justicia y la reparación integral.
Porque el que mata y queda impune vuelve a matar. El que roba y queda impune vuelve a robar. El que viola y queda impune vuelve a robar. Entonces, que la gente entienda de que el castigo a los criminales de guerra, a los que cometieron delitos contra la humanidad, los responsables de graves violaciones de derechos humanos, no es solo porque un grupo de gente clavada o amarrada al pasado sigue pidiendo que se investigue eso después de 20 años. No, es porque la impunidad, ¿verdad?, es la que está produciendo la muerte lenta del hambre y la muerte violenta de la inseguridad, de la sangre.
The goal is truth, justice, and reparation for victims. And reparation doesn't only mean financial reparations, it could also mean moral reparations or other acknowledgement of what they have suffered, of the indignity and injustice that it represents. So that's our goal. We want families to know what happened to their loved ones, to understand why, and to have some measure of justice and accountability for what happened. Ultimately, that's what we're struggling for.
Que los familiares de las víctimas y las víctimas mismas tuvieran una manera de reparación, de justicia, que los responsables pudieran ser juzgados los que dieron las órdenes y por lo menos pedir perdón a las víctimas.
Gracias, Carlos.
Gracias.